Hey, we're back. This is John.
It's Paul.
And it's Eric.
That is What If Geeks, and we're here with another Moon Knight review. We're here to do episode 4, The Tomb. And all I can say is this show is weirder and weirder every time we watch it. But I love it. The only time I'll mention my wife in this whole episode is she is fully like ready to sign off. She's like, I don't think she's enjoying this at all, but she's so dedicated to Marvel that she's sticking to it. But every time we watch this show, she's like, it's just so weird. I don't know. So I think she's pretty much done with it. But I like it. I've been enjoying it so far. So what about you guys?
I'm closer to Heather's camp. I'm struggling a little bit, and we'll talk about it maybe when we talk about episode 5. Four was better, but I don't know. The 4 and 5 story arcs, important stuff had to happen, but I'm just kind of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think episode 5 broke her like Pazuzu broke Reagan in Exorcist. I'm surprised her head wasn't spinning. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I too think it's weird. I didn't watch it last week, so I just watched both episodes earlier today. Right before we got on here, pretty much. But
you look like you watched both episodes.
It's a little weird. I did notice something though when I was looking through the credit stuff before we started. Episodes 3 and 4 are actually written by Peter Cameron. He was the executive story writer for WandaVision.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
I wonder if the sort of downscaling of weirdness isn't somewhat influenced by the fact that he wrote these last couple episodes.
No, yeah, that makes total sense, because this is, again, and I said it when this show first started, we first started reviewing it, I was like, this is the first time where I'm like, I don't know 100% what's going on with this character, but at the same time, I was looking forward to it because I didn't know that. But the further we get in with this guy, I'm like, I totally understand where you guys are coming from, where I'm like, this is a lot. Like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. So it's very, very much a very weird show. And I'm hoping that in true Marvel MCU fashion, by next week, there's some type of payoff. And we'll get into that when we get to the end of episode 5. But so right now we're doing episode 4, which is The Tomb. So where did we leave our heroes last, Eric?
Where did we leave our heroes last? I actually don't remember where we left them at 3. I think Country got imprisoned at the end.
Country got imprisoned, yes.
Yeah, I got the end of 3. And then at the start of 4, they're outside what I assume was where Amit's tomb is supposed to be at. And there's like some kind of campsite there, but there's bodies laying around and it's obviously abandoned or whatever, right? This, I don't know. Sorry to sidetrack real quick, but I think maybe part of the problem with this show is that they're trying to do so many different things in each episode. And what I mean by that is like they're doing the duality of the character thing, and they've got this little side love story going with Layla, right? And then they're trying to teach you Egyptian mythology like here and there.
Yeah,
right?
That's a really good point, because the director had said before this came out that all the other Hollywood stuff you saw with Egyptian mythology and Egyptian heritage didn't live up to it, and he wanted to show it for what it really was. But I think trying to throw all of that into a show like this is actually turning into a hindrance.
Yeah, I mean,
It's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I'm enjoying it. But there's too much going on at one time.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, and I would say most people don't have a background in it, and so I think most people sort of casually know at least some of the Greek gods, some of the Roman gods. You don't have to be explained sort of who Zeus is and who right some of the others are.
Yeah.
But you have to.
I'll say it, most of us white folk don't know what the fuck's going on with Egyptian.
Right. So you have to explain like who's Osiris and who's Amet and who's Khonshu and what do they do and what's the
Yeah, and I mean, not so ironically, I mean, they all do kind of tie into each other. If you look at the overall of the gods, that every race, religion, whatever, has a version of something like this, right? So I mean, it's all kind of basically the same thing. So you can do it. It's just trying to be focused and dedicated and true to that one thing. I think maybe again, we talked briefly before we started recording about whether or not this is going to be more than just a mini series of 6 episodes. If they had, and we don't know yet, but from what I've heard, it's only a mini series of 6 episodes. If they had more than 6 to spread this out over, I think you could take your time and make it better. Right now, it's kind of like information overload, is what it feels like. But at the same time, they do feel like, and we'll get into that a little bit later, next episode, with episode 5. They do feel like they could be setting up for another series or another season, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's a lot right now.
You also have to, I would say, again, I mean, we're pretty decently schooled comic nerds, and none of us have a history of reading Moon Knight. I would imagine that only the hardest core of Marvel folks or the hardest core of nerds has read a bunch of Moon Knight comics. So you've got to explain who Mark Spector is, who Stephen Grant is, the backstory of them, like why does he have what seems to be dissociative personality disorder, like where's all that come from, what's to do with it? So you've got a lot to kind of cram in.
Yeah, and then only because the 3 of us are at least in this world that we're able to quickly go and do some homework, that we know where the base comes from. But then even still, the MCU goes and turns some of it on its head, where like Stephen Grant is not the same character, and so we're lost even in the stuff that we don't know but we tried to learn. So it's definitely getting to be a headache, but overall still, and I think I give probably 90% of this credit to Oscar Isaac. I'm still enjoying this show, and I think it's mostly because of him. It's his ability to pull this off that is keeping me engaged.
Yeah, what's interesting is watching, especially I think it happens in episode 5, maybe some in 4, when they're together, his face is different. Like he holds his face differently. It might be that they do his hair slightly differently, but like you can tell which one's which. It's like they're, even among identical twins, if you know the twins, you can see a little bit of differences. And so that's what it feels like. Like they look like identical twins, but if you know them well enough, oh yeah, that one's that one and that one, that's Mark.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's like, when I dated twins back in high school, and they said, how'd you tell the difference? I said, well, one was really hot blonde, the other one had a penis. No, but yes, to your point, again, Oscar Isaac is what we talked a lot about. Some actors that they always play the same, it's them in a role. Or you have an actor like Oscar Isaac who loses himself into a role so much that you get these things where they can do a camera trick where he's playing side by side to himself and look like 2 different characters. And that's really cool to see. So, all right, let's get into the episode. We could be here all day talking about the little minutiae of it.
Hey, it's the more interesting thing. I'm sure everybody that's listening to this watched the damn episode anyway. So.
Oh yeah, but I'm also sure we'll get more into it here in about 5 minutes. So.
Yeah, so I think the only thing that happens of any real significance while they're outside is that twice, Layla goes in for a kiss at one point with Steven after Mark tells him,
Mark tells him, don't touch her.
Yeah. And then he stops her the first time, and says, oh hey, Mark did this for you. He tries to like, I thought you should know this. This is all for you. He didn't want you to get or to become Khonshu's avatar or whatever. But then of course there's an embrace shortly thereafter and pisses Mark off. So again, just one of the many things they're trying to do here is have a little love story on the side. It's just,
Yeah, sure.
I'm not even sure. I mean, it's fine, but I'm not sure that it's really headed somewhere that matters. But so,
I don't think,
huh?
I don't think, I mean, outside of the fact that, just deep set in his head, Mark obviously loves her. And Steven, like we said last time, Steven is showing all of the embodiment of everything she loves because that's Mark's affection for her, right?
Yeah.
So, and we'll learn more and more about that because we were trying to figure out how the personalities work together, and we learn a little bit more about that over these 2 episodes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so they do kiss, and then she scales down into the tomb, and he says, "I'll be right behind you," and then Mark punches him.
Yeah.
But again, it was fucking real physical comedy, but fucking funny as hell. Because right before he's getting ready to jump, his arm just holds off and fucking punches him in the face. Yeah, that was funny.
So in the tomb, they're looking around, see a bunch of stuff. I guess they ultimately end up at a little sacrificial altar, right? And there's blood on it. There's bones everywhere, and then this bizarro undead priestly thing comes in with one of Harrow's men to sacrifice, and I don't know what the fuck he's gonna do to him, mummify him, take his organs.
That clicking noise it makes,
Yeah,
was fucking. It was creepy as hell. And I read something. You know what the clicking noise was, right?
No.
It was because its tongue was removed.
Oh.
So it was like, and it had no eyes. So it was basically like making a noise to use
thing,
like echolocation. And I was like, oh, it's fucked up. But again, like very attention to detail kind of thing. But yeah, very creepy. He was clicking his way in there.
Yeah, so the Egyptian, whatever, undead thing, he's a priest, right? It's supposed to be a priest.
Yeah.
He notices Mark, he starts to climb up that scaffolding thing behind him.
Well, yeah, because he drags on Harrow's men in there, right?
Yeah, he puts them on the table. Yeah, he's about to he does kill him. He does kill him.
There's a great scene that
was taking them apart.
When they walk in there and Steven's like, is that blood and meaty bits?
Yeah, because he's like, there's fresh blood and there's meaty bits on the altar, and you can see some of the jars do look like they've been freshly opened, and then this thing brings this guy in there and cuts them apart and starts putting body parts in jars, just like they did in Egypt. So the 2 of them separate.
Well, yeah, because it starts to go after
Mark, Steven.
Yeah, or Steven, yeah, whatever.
He's looking for after
him, but then Layla makes noise or whatever, and she runs out of the thing, and it goes after her, and she's like scaling a cliff wall or whatever. It's trying to follow.
Steven also sees another way out. He's like, I think there's a way out up there.
Yeah. There's a whole thing there where he's on a second level and she's hiding behind the altar from this thing, and the 2 of them are distracting it from the other one. And then then they both kind of get out.
Yeah, so she ends up fighting it on a cliffside or something. She sticks that flare into its eye socket.
Yeah.
Throws it off the edge. And then forget, Mark goes then and he ends up finding a burial tomb. He's reading all the hieroglyphs on the wall or whatever, and he realizes that this is somebody significant. Of course, he doesn't say who it is right away, but it's apparently Alexander the Great, who was Amit's last avatar before she was imprisoned.
Yep.
And so he, against his better judgment, opens the sarcophagus, and then has this weird puzzle epiphany thing, like, oh, he was the voice of Amit, so the statue must be
Statue must be inside him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in his mouth.
Okay,
He's like, I'm gonna try something, and it opens up the friggin' mummification and breaks the jaw open and reaches down in there.
I like how he does it though. He's like,
Very Steven.
Yeah,
He was like,
sorry,
oh,
yeah.
excuse me.
oh, so sorry. You know, he pulls the thing back and he breaks the fucking jaw off. Oh, sorry. I couldn't be more sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't be more sorry. Excuse me. He's got his arm halfway
A
down.
very British way to rob a tomb.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's fucking priceless.
So he does find the statue inside there, and then they cut back to Layla and this what's his name, Harrow. Harrow runs up on her. He's across the chasm or whatever, so he can't get to her, but he's talking to her. He's trying to sort of goad her into staying there, and then she's trying to walk off, and then he sort of drops the bomb that
He says, "Did Mark tell you what happened to your father?"
Mark's he tells her, although it's not quite true, that Mark was one of the mercenaries that killed her father.
No. He says, "Did Mark tell you what happened to your father?" Because that was the key to this, which I really enjoyed. Because Ethan Hawke played this really well. When he asked, "Did Mark tell you about your father? Did he tell you the secret?" And she comes back, and she says, "About my father." And he sits down on the other side of the ledge, and he just kind of he lets her,
right,
without really saying anything, right. He lets her goad herself into it. And she says, my father was killed, blah, blah, blah. What? And so did Mark kill my father? And he says, you said it.
Right.
He never said Mark killed him.
Right.
He says,
it's true.
Yeah. He's like, you said it. So then she leaves, and he just, go on.
Yeah, she ends up in the tomb with Mark or Steven at the time. And then confronts him right away, and Mark, I guess, appears for a second. Yeah.
Yeah. She tells him, "I want to talk to Mark," and he lets Mark take over. And she's like, "Is it true? Did you kill my father?" And he's like, "We have to get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, we have to leave right now." And she's like, "No, I'm not going anywhere. Is it true?" And he tries to explain something to her, but then Harrow and his men show up.
Yeah, well, I mean, he says his partner killed her dad and him, but
yeah, he does. He says, he's like, I didn't do. He's like, I tried to stop him.
Yeah, but
I tried to stop it from happening.
She says,
but you were there.
You were there, and you led them to him.
Right.
And he goes, I tried to stop it, and then he shot me.
Right. Which is kind of, last episode when we were talking about it, I said I thought this was going to happen. I was like, this is exactly what's going to happen, and they're going to set up Bushman this way.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, God, I might have completely fucked up Mephisto, but I've been calling him right ever since. So they're fighting, and then Harrow shows up with this man, and basically tell him, hand over the statue. And Mark refuses, but I think actually Layla's got the statue.
Yeah, he gave it to Layla.
Got the statue, and she's hidden, and he's standing there facing off against Harrow and his men. And Harrow says something. They're talking back and forth for a little bit, and then Harrow says, "I can't help anyone who doesn't want to help himself." And Mark lunges at one of the guys, and they fight for a couple of minutes. And he's actually putting up a fight against a whole bunch of people who are armed in a little, not a very big room.
Right.
And then Harrow turns around and shoots him twice in the chest. So then Mark looks shocked, falls backwards into a little pool of water. And at first you see he's in a shallow pool of water, right? Where you see the stones behind him, but then the camera cuts immediately underneath him, and you're very deep in this pool of water, and he starts to sink. Right?
Yeah, and this is where it turns super weird.
But and actually the camera turns so it looks like he's going up.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because
then
at first it's like here, and he's in a shallow pool, and then it switches,
Yeah.
and it looks like he's in a very deep pool, and it looks like he goes in like two different directions at once somehow. It's weird, but yeah, he kind of goes up, and then it cuts, and he wakes up.
Well, actually, it does a really weird thing here. It cuts to like a 80s looking TV series or
Right.
something.
Right, and even the letter, like the aspect of the screen changes, right, to what it would look
Yep,
like if you have a
Back in the 80s.
modern TV, but watching an
Yeah,
80s
the
movie,
square,
the letterbox square.
3 ratio that we used to have. Yeah.
Which again, to your point earlier, they did that in WandaVision for a little while.
Yeah.
So it cuts to that ratio, and you're watching a very Indiana Jones-esque type of person walk through a jungle with, I guess, a ward, a young child, a young boy with him.
Yeah.
And they're talking for a minute, and they're obviously on an expedition. And is there a voiceover, or at some point you hear the guy's name?
Yeah, there's like a kid talking, and then he says to the whatever the guy is, the archaeologist, the tomb raider, I don't know what the fuck he is. He says to him, "Oh, you're Dr. Stephen Grant."
Right.
Well, he says something. He goes, "Do you see anything unusual?" And he goes, "No, but you're Dr. Stephen." You know, it's one of those things like where he
The
does
kids,
the
but
name
you're
like,
Dr. Stephen Grant.
You're the
You should be
famous
able to
Stephen
do
Grant.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're obviously looking for some type of archaeology, yeah,
That thing.
an old treasure.
Archaeological?
Treasure. And it is some type of multi-headed
Lunar goddess.
thing.
Or
So
god or goddess, I can't remember.
something, yeah, but it's something to do with this, something that kind of goes along with Moon Knight. And so you get the drop of this guy is Stephen Grant, and I think as he goes to touch it, that's when we kind of cut back, right?
Well, and then it's yeah, we cut back to this very stark white room with what look like patients in it. It's got a very sort of, although ultra clean, sort of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest vibe, psych ward.
Yes,
vibe,
very
right?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Although stark white and clean, like if One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest happened in an Apple store.
Yeah, because there's a very stark, clean, but beat up and broken look about it at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, like if a psych ward were in an Apple store, and so they're playing bingo and crazy people being crazy people. There's and then I think someone goes and looks, and you see Marv/Steven through the window.
Yeah.
And then someone that looks like Layla tells him he's got bingo.
Well, yeah, she's a nurse, and then
She was a patient, bro.
She was a patient. She was dressed like a patient.
Patient? Okay.
Yeah, she has like, nah, she's gotta be a patient, right?
I thought she
Yeah.
was doing nurses.
Eyes were all like dark and stuff. And
Yeah, the nurses, the orderlies were wearing like a cream sort of pink.
Okay, all right, maybe she was another
She was
patient.
she was wearing white.
It was just the
all
fact
the
that
other
she was
patients.
up and moving, and none of the other ones were, that I thought she might have been a nurse at first. But yeah, but she's like, "Oh, you got bingo." She's like, "We got bingo." Oh, well, I'll share it with you this time. Yeah. So obviously she's done this to him in the past, right? But there's a whole thing in there where, if you actually pay attention, all the people that are in there are from the show that you've been watching, right? The guy calling bingo is the statue artist,
the gold statue guy. Yeah.
gold statue guy. Even his hat is in front of him. He's pulling the bingo balls from there. Now, if you actually pay attention to the bingo numbers and you understand bingo, not all the numbers he calls are what you would really call him bingo. And I'm wondering if that's actually got something to do with something. Because he even calls like a T some shit or whatever, something different. He definitely doesn't call regular bingo numbers. And I don't know if those are actually code for something, because everything in Marvel is code. So we'll find out later. but he's one. Layla is another patient. There's a few others sprinkled throughout there. The girl that Steven was supposed to go out on that date with, she's there. And then one of the orderlies that comes in after Steven or slash Mark, when he goes to get up, he's the one that was one of the fake cops, the guy with the beard. That's one of the cops. Like they're all in there.
Right.
But the big reveal is Dr. Harrow.
Yep.
Yeah, Dr. Harrow is talking to Mark slash Steven. And like we said, shit gets really fucking weird here because you're not sure if everything we've just watched has been happening in his head.
Yep.
But that's what Dr. Harrow now, because he's like, you've been talking about, this fantasy land, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's talking to Mark. He says Mark. So Mark is in a wheelchair, strapped to the wheelchair, just like he strapped himself to his bed, right? So all of this shit is coming back full circle. He falls out of the chair, and when he falls out, he drops a little figure of Moon Knight, which is really weird because if Moon Knight doesn't exist, why the fuck is there an action figure of him? But okay, we'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. So he's running into Layla and all this other shit, right? But as he's talking to Dr. Harrow, he's looking around the room, and there's a little Egyptian mythology shit all around the room. Yeah. He looks over through the glass to another room, and the dude in there is wearing the same Croc type sandals that Harrow wore throughout the other episodes, right?
Well, even Harrow has those kind of those sandals on. They look like leathery sort of. They'd be a dress shoe if you're kind of a hippie. He carries a cane, like Harrow walks with a cane.
Yeah, he's got a cane but the head is white as opposed to what it looked like the rest of the show. But even like I was in the very beginning, I was like, oh, this is him in the afterlife, right? This is what I said in the beginning. I was like, oh shit, okay, he got shot. This is him in between worlds, right? But then they played into this so long that I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore. I have no fucking idea. And then it keeps getting worse. So go ahead. You guys keep going.
Well, actually, you made me wonder. I just pulled up a still frame of the bingo card. I put it in the chat there. It is totally whacked out. I don't know if it has any relevance, but the numbers they go up to 90 and they're completely out of order. Like the B's are high numbers, the N's got low numbers in it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they're all.
It says you got a bingo, but there's no fucking bingo.
No, which again, to my point of, I thought this was him in the afterlife. It could have just been like a throwaway thing, but we stay in this for the rest of this episode, and we'll get into the rest of it in our next episode. But we stay in this area so long that I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on anymore. So I don't know. What am I forgetting in this part?
So does he? I don't think he gets away. He gets out of the room with Dr. Harrow. He goes down and he bumps into Steven.
Yeah, that's the thing, because he tries to get out, and finally he manages to get away from him long enough to get down the hallway.
It's more symbolic than that, because he runs down the hallway into this room to hide, and there's a sarcophagus inside.
Yeah, that's
right.
what
it opens the sarcophagus, and
he hears "Let me out, let me out," and he opens the sarcophagus, and he lets Steven out, and that's the first time you get the Oscar Isaac against Oscar Isaac play, and you're like, holy shit. And that's to Paul's point, where they are two different faces, two different personalities playing off of each other with obviously, today's special effects, but fuck, he does an amazing job.
Yeah.
Mark lets Steven out, and this is the first time the two of them are technically, quote unquote, physically seeing each other, right? Face to face, outside of like a mirror. So he lets him out, and he's like, Steven, and Steven goes, Mark, and they hug. Right? So that's their first reaction is to hug each other, right? Because they're both scared and they don't know what's going on. So they hug each other, and they're like, what's going on? We don't know. Let's get the fuck out of here. And they leave that room. And when they leave that room, they go down a hall and they go to open another door. There's another sarcophagus standing up, rattling back and forth.
Yep.
And Mark pulls Steven away from it. And they run down the hall some more. And my first thought was, that's the third personality.
Yeah, I thought that too.
That's Jake.
Yep.
So they keep on going. They don't touch back on this at all. They go further down the hallway. Now shit's like rocking back and forth and whatever else going on in this damn thing. And they get to the end of the hallway where there's some double doors, and they think they're gonna get out. And the double doors kick in, and a goddamn Egyptian hippopotamus walks in.
with a female British accent.
And they stop and they look at her, and she looks and she goes, oh, hello, and waves, and they scream, and we go to black.
Yep.
The one thing I want to say before we go into the next episode is the amount of detail they put into this fucking hippopotamus, the nostril flaring and the ears twitching and all this shit. Like everything they do with this thing looks so much like a fucking hippopotamus. I was mesmerized by this thing. I was like, again, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but holy shit. I'm all in. This is ridiculous. It was so funny. She was just like, oh, hello. Huh?
What was the show with the like cartoon with like the animal people? They were like escaped from a zoo and they went to Africa or whatever. Madagascar, yeah. You remember the female hippo in that?
Yeah.
That's kind of what this reminded me of.
Jada is the female hippo in that movie.
Yeah. Oh my god. Keep my hippo out your fucking mouth.
Right.
Gloria, that was her name, Gloria.
Oh, fuck Gloria. She needs a divorce will, leave her alone. There, topical humor. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, so we've got this fucking hippo that shows up and waves at them, and they freak out, and then we cut to black. And Heather just looked at the screen. Sorry, I know I said I was done mentioning her, but again, this is the show that like just baffles her. She just looked at the screen. She was like, I have no fucking idea what the hell's going on. I'm like, well, neither do I. But like where I'm all in, she's just like, all right, I'm gonna watch it next week.
Yeah, I think I had the advantage here of being able to watch number 5 right away, because I was like, the fuck is any of this? Like, I almost thought for a minute they were gonna play this off as like, he's in an asylum and this is all in his head kind of shit, and that's why it's a mini series. And I was like, oh man, can't be it.
And here's the thing too, though. Like Moon Knight is such a weird character where just with this episode, not going into what we know about the next one, but just with this episode, if you go back and you start to read some of the comics, they do play on this kind of shit with this character. So you don't know what the fuck they're going to do. So for me, just watching this show alone and taking nothing else but this at face value, the fact that he got shot, I was still convinced like this is the afterlife. And we're going to get back to, because so far, Marvel hasn't done any of this shit that really doesn't lead into anything else. Like this is eventually he's going to do something. But we're also in episode 4 now where we're like, this series is about to wrap up. What the fuck are we doing?
Well, and that's where I am and was at the end of this episode, because I always think, okay, we have 6 episodes. This is the end of 4. He got shot. This feels to me like afterlife. So now we haven't rescued Khonshu. How are we getting the main character back through whatever journey this is to life to save the day? Like we've got a lot to do now in 2 episodes. And it feels like Marvel hasn't done this yet, but in other series, when you end up spending so long of either the movie or the show setting the backstory, you end up solving the problem too quickly, and it
Too
seems
quickly,
trite.
yes. Yeah, and yeah, to your point, Marvel has not done this yet because, like, if you go back to, the last series we watched, Hawkeye, at this point, we got Kingpin.
Right.
Like so, and now
And you had a 2-episode
you
all
had
out
like
fight,
two
and it
or
was
three
awesome.
episodes. Yeah, you had a couple episodes of a big fight battle where we're going into episode 5, and we still have no fucking idea what the hell is going on. And our hero is apparently maybe dead or in an asylum. Is all fucking made up. So what the fuck?
And by the way, we didn't see Moon Knight. We didn't see the costume in the whole episode.
At all.
Right.
At all. Still a fun episode, an interesting episode. But to your point, we didn't see the hero at all, and we're still left with not knowing what the hell is going on. So yeah, again, this is the first series where I'm almost to the point where I'm like, I could have probably done without this. I want to see how they're gonna wrap this whole thing up. Just to hopefully, I look forward to like a movie or something. But like at that point, I was like, I have no idea what the fuck we're doing anymore. So there we are. That was the end of episode 4, and we're about to jump into episode 5. You guys got anything else on this besides what the fuck? I think that wraps it up nicely, right? Okay.
Not really, yeah.
All right, cool. So if you're as confused as we are, like and subscribe. If not, like and subscribe anyway, because we'll hang out and talk. Like, subscribe, ring a bell. Let us know what you thought of this episode, what we may have missed in this, and hit us up at whatifgeeks.com, whatifgeeks@gmail.com, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we will be back here very shortly for episode 5. That's it. Good night, Tony.
Good night, giant hippo lady.
Good night, Peck Priest, forever.